Today is Tuesday, October 31st, also known as Halloween, and we say happy Halloween to our Jets beat writer, Brian Costello. Brian, how you doing?
Happy Halloween, Ryan. Happy trade deadline day.
Yeah, happy trade deadline day. Obviously, we're going to talk to you about the NFL trade deadline passed today at 4 o'clock. The New York Jets did not make a move today. So your reaction to what the Jets didn't ultimately do in making any moves today?
I'm not really surprised, Ryan. Asking around last week, there wasn't a lot of guys available. So I think, and the Jets would have loved to add a receiver to this offense. But they called on Devontae Adams and were told he's not available. They called on Mike Evans, were told he was not available. I think they could have traded for Hunter Renfrow if they wanted him. They did not want him. They wanted more of an outside receiver. Renfro's a slot guy who was a big salary. The Denver guys were available, but the price tag was really, really high on them. So I don't think the Jets were going to do that. And in terms of offensive linemen, obviously the Jets could use some help there, but there's not a lot available, right? I think the big name, if you call it a big name, was Ezra Cleveland moving from
Yeah.
Vikings to Jaguars. And from talking to people, the Jets did talk to the Vikings, but they didn't really feel like Cleveland was a great fit for their offense, for their style of play. So, they decided to stand pat. They signed Roger Saffold, a veteran free agent, instead. But to me, I'm not really surprised. I just don't think there was a whole lot available for them to trade for.
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was. And to your point, even Joe Douglas said today there takes two to tango. So there
Yeah.
probably wasn't a good match there for the Jets. On the other side, for the Jets and possibly selling off assets in Carl Lawson and Dalvin Cook, guys who aren't playing as much currently, they didn't move those guys either. So what was your takeaway in the decision to ultimately not trade either one of those players?
Yeah, I think it's the flip side. I think in this case, they couldn't find buyers, right? They couldn't find sellers at the receiver market or line. They couldn't find buyers here. Dalvin Cook hasn't done much all season. They still owe him a decent amount of money. So I'm not sure people are like, Dalvin Cook was available in the middle of August when there was 32 teams, or I guess the Vikings wouldn't re-sign him, but 31 teams could have signed him, right? No one did. That's why the Jets were able to get him. So it's only a few months later, he hasn't done anything. So I don't think there would be a robust market for him, especially with the contract he signed. And then Carl Lawson's owed $3.5 million still and really hasn't done anything all season. And if you turn on the tape, when he has played, he hasn't looked like himself. I don't know if the back injury affected him or what, but I just don't think there's a market for either one of those guys. And so rather than just, cutting them or whatever, I think they're good depth. I mean, Dalvin Cook theoretically is, if Breece Hall, God forbid, if he sprains an ankle or something, has to miss a few games, Dalvin Cook's your running back. I think they trust him more than the other guys on the roster. So we could end up seeing Cook play more. I think Carl is buried in a deep rotation at defensive end, but maybe he gets a shot too if there's some injuries there.
Yeah, it's a great point by you, Kaz, that they need the depth probably. In all likelihood, we've seen the injuries bug already hit the offensive line and how much that depth has already been tested beyond belief. And it'll be interesting to see how those two factor into the rest of the season and what kind of impact they could possibly play. The other part that we heard about Joe Douglas talk about today was Aaron Rodgers. First public comments since he went down 4 plays into the season against the Bills week 1. What did you take away from Joe Douglas's comments where he said, we expect Aaron to be back with the team?
Yeah, I think Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are in a very, very tricky spot, right? I don't think anyone really thinks with any firm conviction that Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to come back by the end of the season. But they can't say that, right? They've got to let Aaron Rodgers, if Rodgers says that's his goal, that's a good goal for him. And let him, if that's what he needs to get through the day of rehab, let him have that. The Jets can't really poo-poo that idea. I also think they can't fully say, oh, yeah, he's going to be back because you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's a tricky spot right now for them to answer. And I thought Joe misspoke when he said we expect him to be back because I thought, okay, oh, my God, he's saying they expect him to be back on the field. Right. And he clarified later, they expect him to be back in the building and with the team. Because really, he's been coming in for games and then going back to California after the games. And he hasn't really been in New Jersey for the week. So at some point, I'm guessing he's going to be here all week, and that's what Joe's kind of referring to. But yeah, I do think. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch how it plays out, Ryan. Because if Aaron Rodgers says he wants to come back and he gets a doctor's clearance, I think, Joe Douglas especially and Robert Saleh, they've got to think about 2024 and the risk of putting him on the field right now and whether that's worth it if he could get re-injured. So it's going to be, I think, a delicate dance between the Jets and Aaron Rodgers as the season goes on.
Well, that's the fascinating part, right, Kaz, is that if the Jets, let's say they keep scrapping these wins together, getting by with minimal play by Zach Wilson, but they keep getting wins. It comes that critical point towards the end of the season. Let's say they're on the verge of clinching a playoff spot. And Aaron Rodgers, like you said, is in that exact situation of he gets the clearance from the doctors and says, I'm ready to play. Could you see Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas ultimately saying, we haven't made the playoffs in over a decade. I understand we're looking at 2024, but for this team right now, let's go for it.
Yeah, and I'll throw a third person into this equation too. Woody Johnson is going to say, "What are we talking about? We got to make the playoffs." Because I don't think Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are worried about 12 years. They haven't been there that long, but Woody Johnson is, and so I do think he could get involved in this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to play out, Ryan. It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I mean, I think the doctors are ultimately going to have the final say, and they're going to be the ones that have to decide what the risk factors are involved in Aaron Rodgers playing this year in terms of 2024.
Right. And real quick, just to finish this all up, Kaz, how shocked were you saw Rodgers doing, albeit slow, but dropbacks on the field pregame before the Giants, throwing the ball around? How shocking is that?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to see him do it. There's still a long way to go before he plays a football game in the NFL, right? I mean, we saw Zach running for his life Sunday with Dexter Lawrence chasing him. You have to be able to move side to side and run fast and be agile. And he's a long way from that still, I think. But yeah, no, it's amazing that he's not even 2 months removed and he's out there throwing a football. And he was taking a 3-step drop back. Like he was moving he's moving now forward and backward. I think like laterally, we got to see him move at the point. But I mean, will you be shocked if you see that in 3 weeks? I don't think so because of the way he's going. So it's pretty amazing.
It really is. That's Brian Costello. Looking forward to seeing you cover the team the rest of the season. They got the Chargers up Monday night, and it's going to be a fascinating situation, like you said, with Rodgers to see if he could potentially come back this year. Appreciate you as always, Kaz.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.